Okay, now let's go over the presentation of the logo. So first of all, the logo will be presented on 8.5 by 11-inch paper as follows. So the logo will be shown full size near the top of the page, and then the logo will be shown small. So how big is full size? Well, key thing here is with plenty of space, give the logo what I call some respect space, which is just another word for white space. Look at most corporate stuff. They don't have stuff really touching right up next to their logo. And when you present one to your client or put it in your portfolio, you should give it the same respect. You do not want to visually engage the edges of the paper. So let's start there and let's use some famous logos for examples. So let's say that this was the logo that you designed. How much space would you give it on this page? So again, what you don't want is for it to feel like you are competing with the edges of the document. So often what helps is to make yourself a ruler. And what makes a lot of sense is something that roughly represents the size of the biggest, clearest, most definable part of the logo. So in this case, it would be roughly this big. Remember, we don't go out to the tangent edges. And it's often good to give yourself, at a minimum, half of that amount to the corner, to the edge, which would be like right there. Sometimes it helps to give yourself that whole entire amount. So one way to do that would be to take and put two of those next to your logo. Now, one thing that you want to do is every time you resize your logo, you are resizing the text with it, of course, right? Because you already figured that out, how big that should look. So you play around with that like that. Let me say, okay, that's roughly right. And I'm just going to do these kind of quickly, but you would take your time, make sure everything fits in there nice. Just for comparison's sake, we'll do this with half of that spatial interval next to it. So we'll make a copy of the logo over here, and I should have kept one at full size, and then I'd have been able to just shrink one of these down to 50%. But I'll kind of show you that as I do this one. So instead of trying to shoot right for half that logo size, we'll go for the full size of it. And so we're going to adjust this a little bit so there's just a little bit sticking out on each side since the logo is rounded. Okay, that's pretty close. And then what we'll do is we'll select this. We'll go up to Object Transform, go to Scale, and then we'll make that half the width. So we will go to Non-Uniform. We'll go Horizontal, 50%. Click on Preview. Yep, that was what I was after. Click on OK. And then we'll go ahead and put this, and since it's rounded, again, we'll slightly overlap. Option drag to make a copy of that, and then select everything, and we will hold down the Shift key, the Option key to make it go from the center. A little adjusting and readjusting, we come up with this. We'll just throw these over here for now in case we need them again. Command minus to zoom out. I think I'm going to go with this one. And you could go somewhere in between. This just feels awfully close to the top too. I mean, we'd probably take half of that, turn it down, but then I have no room for the bottom one. There's nothing wrong with this small. You wouldn't want to go any smaller than that. So let's just say we're going to stick with this one. And then let's answer the question, what size is small? So think of this as a test of the logo's ability to scale down. You want to make it small as you can, where it still works. But how far do you really need to push it? So the answer is, if the logo is what some people call a bug style, meaning there is some clear entity to the logo, which in the case of the logo for the Target, that is exactly the case. So I'll show you some comparisons before this is through so you understand what I mean by the bug style logo as compared to like a logo type solution. In this case, the logo itself, or I should say the bug itself, should fit within a circle that is 3/4 of an inch or less. Now on the handout it said a 1/2 inch, but I found that's a little bit stringent, especially in a beginning design class. So let's just shoot for 3/4 of an inch. And notice that it said invisible circle. So we've got to start with the visible one, but that just really means erase it when you're done. We don't want to see that on the final presentation. So we're going to grab the ellipse tool. We're just going to click somewhere on the canvas and we're going to type in 3/4 of an inch. So 0.75, and if you're not in inches, just type in IN and it will convert it. Do the same thing for the height so that it is a perfect circle that we are generating. Click OK and there will be your circle. And then you can flip-flop the fill and the stroke. In fact, we'll just none the fill. And then we are going to make the bug of the logo fit inside of here while reducing the text as well. So I made a copy of this. If this was actual vector graphics, which it will be for you, I make sure that I have the logo and the type with it. I scale this down, being very careful that I don't stretch or squish it. And make sure that I do not release the modifier keys until I'm done. I'm going to have to keep shifting and moving a little bit until I get this just right. But notice I'm not trying to make the whole entire thing fit in the circle, just the bug itself, which in the case of target, the bug is the target. So there we go. I'm just under 3/4 of an inch. So then that means I can select this circle, get rid of it, Command minus out, and then I can go ahead and then just spend a little bit of time making sure that I have these in what would be the visible center. And this is how you test the logo. You say, can I still read this reasonably well? And then that lets you know whether you have a successful logo that can be used at small sizes and at big sizes. In other words, these should have the same visual look and flavor, if you will. I'll show you something to be aware of. So let's say you got your first version of your logo just where you wanted it, and now you're working on the small version and you had that 3/4 of an inch circle out there. And let's see, you got that there where it fits, and you're like, okay, that fit inside the 3/4 inch circle. Now take a close look at that with a discerning eye, and in the way that this is a miniature version of this, is this a miniature version of this? No, it's not, right? So every aspect of that logo needs to be shrunk down. Now you might want to see if you can think what happened here. As I tell you, you click on this and you go over to the stroke panel. Just drill down one level here so you can see that. There's a stroke on this, right? And it's about 18 something points. And here on the shrunk down version, there is a stroke. Again, I got to drill into it to get it, but there it is. Same exact size. So how do we avoid this situation? Well, what you have to watch out for is there's a feature that you can turn on. Go to the scale tool. Make sure that that's the one that's, because they all share, these four share the same box. Go to the scale tool, make sure it's the one that's there. Double click on it and check scale, strokes, and effects, because by default, the program does not scale strokes. So when we go make a copy of this, bring it down. Now we have same thing over here, an exact replica, just smaller. Let's look at another example. Would you say that this is a bug that stands alone? It's kind of a yes and no question, right? The text does meld right into it, but this logo is often shown on its own. So I would just say, let's give it a try. If you were the student and you were doing this one and it just didn't work inside of the 3/4 inch, then I would say, okay, yeah, it's on the fence. You could probably go either way on that. Once you have it where the bug actually fits inside of the 3/4 inch circle, again, you're not concerned about the text fitting inside of there, but in this case, it does. And then you back up to like normal viewing distance and you say, does that work? And yeah, I would say it works almost as good as this one, and it's a lot smaller. So great. Okay, so now let's move on to examples where the logo isn't a standalone bug. An example of that would be the FedEx logo, and really any logo that the logo is the type. There is no bug. Now in the FedEx, there technically is a bug, this arrow that's trapped in here, but that just wouldn't be fair to take the whole readable word and try to stick it into 3/4 of an inch space. So the test that I recommend, and that is required for this project, is if you have a logo. So the answer number 2 to this question, how small is small? If and only if the logo is a typographical solution and or the visual element of the logo is among the text, then the logo will appear as small as it would ever appear inside of a business card. You're not trying to make it as big as you can fit it in a standard size business card, but as small as it would ever show. So it's practical, realistic example that you might share with the client. And again, I say invisible because once you do it, I want you to get rid of the business card. How big is a standard size business card? I'll let you do the critical thinking on that one. I don't think it'll take you long to find out. Here we have our standard size business card box, a copy of our logo, and we're going to place this in here as small as it would ever be seen on here. So you have to think, okay, well, if we have to make room for person's name, address, all that kind of stuff, how small would it be seen on here? Now, obviously you have a lot of flexibility in here in that your thoughts about how small it would ever appear might be different than mine. But what I really want to make sure is that no one designs a logo that would not hold up inside of a business card, because that's just like there's maybe a 1% reason to ever have a logo like that. So if you were really onto something that was really great and you weren't after, making a recognizable logo for, marketing purposes, and you said, okay, my idea is that this logo for the client would appear on one side of the business card. You could probably sell me on that, but it's probably a conversation we should have before you turn it in. But on the other hand, if that thing works small and you're trying to show off that fact, then make it small and again get rid of the business card. Okay, so let's look at another example that's a little bit questionable like this one. Well, let me just say it this way. If the logo is clearly separate from the text like this, and it has that bug type feeling, then definitely go with the 3/4 of an inch mark. Now, the rare exception to a logo not being in the type would be like the dot of an I, like the drip logo. That's not really a mark, so then you would the whole entire word. But if it's a bug, an entity, something that could stand alone, like the Apple logo, then it definitely goes inside of 3/4 of an inch, and the text gets appropriately with the proper constraints reduced as well. Now let's look at one that kind of looks like a bug, but actually it wouldn't be fair to treat it as such. That would be this type of logo that I pretty much try to talk you out of doing for this class, and that is one where the text is inside of the logo. They are most of them, not all, but a lot of them are tend to be lowbrow logos. So you don't really want a lowbrow logo in your portfolio, but they're very hard to do successfully. It's very hard to get type to work inside of here and to be readable at a small size. This one obviously works. You could probably put this down to this small and it would still work, but it's not fair to make that mandatory. So this one you would treat the same way, put it inside of a standard business card, and if you can go really small and show off, then do so. Otherwise, go more moderate. That's quite small in that business card, but let's compare it to the others and see, and I'd say it's Still works because they really spent a lot of time making sure that that was readable from a distance. And hopefully you got the message in here about the importance of white space, letting it breathe, not connecting visually with the edges of the artboard.